Thank you all for coming. The title of today's lecture is The Economics of Anarchic Order. The objective in this lecture is, do we need a government to function? Alternately, can we function in anarchy? This is the roadmap. I would like to first discuss political governance in the form of monarchy and anarchy. Then I would like to introduce to you anarchic governance as a superior form of governance. And finally, I would like to talk about the transition, the possible transitions from democracy to anarchy. First, let's start by defining the word anarchy. Anarchy comes from a Greek word for anarchia. The prefix a stands for absence or without, and archy means a ruler, authority, a sovereign ruler. So anarchy means without a ruler or absence of a ruler. Etymologically, over time, it has become to be known as the absence of a political ruler, the absence of a sovereign ruler, the absence of authority, the absence of government, or the absence of state. In 1651, political theorist Thomas Hobbes argued in his book, The Leviathan, that in anarchy, in the absence of political governance, there'll be chaos, conflict, disorder, war. There'll be a war of every man against every other man. Life will be short, brutish, difficult, harsh, nasty, poor. And he argued that order could only emerge when there is political governance. Since then, many political philosophers, all the way from the 17th, all the way to the 21st century, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, John Locke, John Stuart Mill, Francis Fukuyama, Max Weber, major political thinkers since then all argued and all supported political governance. They argued that chaos will ensue in the absence of political governance. As a matter of fact, Francis Fukuyama wrote a book, The End of History, which won prizes in LA Times, and he argued in that book that we human beings have finally discovered our form of human governance, which is democracy. He said it is the end of history. We're done, no more research, let's close the book. We have discovered our form of governance in democracy. Nowadays, we operate, the political governance that dominates is in the form of democracy. Historically, in the Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 15th century, we experienced what we call monarchy. You can think about the European monarchs. Nowadays, we still have some monarchies in United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman, right? So monarchies still exist. But historically, nowadays, what came to be known as a form of political governance is democracy. What is democracy? Democracy is the government by the people. It's a collective communal governance in a theoretical sense. Rules are established via majority voting over a territory, right? So the concept of democracy actually emerged in ancient Greece about 2,500 years ago, 5th century BC, and it progressed over times, it waxed and waned, but the idea came back to be the dominant form of governance nowadays. And the transition that took place in modern democracy is in the 18th century, right? The US and French revolutions of the 1776 and the French Revolution in 1789. However, democracy, we were promised peace, we were promised harmony, we were promised stability. However, we got nothing. And democracy, as Hans-Hermann argues in his book, Democracy, the God That Failed, it wasn't necessarily an improvement over monarchy. On many aspects, actually, it was a step back from monarchism. Okay? If monarchy is the tyranny of the many, then democracy, if monarchy is the tyranny of the one, then democracy is the tyranny of the many. We replaced one tyrant with many tyrants. It is the tyranny of the 51% over the 49%, right? So think about it. On one issue, let's say abortion, you might be in the majority. The next day, on issues regarding immigration, you might be in the minority. So democracy is a perpetual violation of your subjective preferences. Depending on the issue on which you stand, one day it's a violation against your preference, the next day you are the violator of another group of individuals with respect to their preferences. Furthermore, think about it. I mean, we were promised freedom, democracy, freedom, but we got none. So I will raise the following question. Do you think you're free? Do you have freedom? And the answer is, no, you don't. One fundamental freedom that human beings have is self-ownership, is owning your personhood. But you don't own your personhood. If you come to me and say, Professor, I want to work for you, pay me $15 an hour, and let me learn, let me become your teacher's assistant, can we conclude that contract? And the answer is no, because you don't own your labor under democracy. In the state of California, the minimum wages are over $18. So we can't really transact. I can't sell you my labor. So what kind of freedom are we talking about? If I can't own my labor, you don't even own your body. You can't sell your kidney. Can you prostitute your body? Can you actually consume drugs that have not been approved by the FDA? So it's an illusion of freedom, and you are delusional if you think you're free, okay? We grew up in a world, we think we're free, but we're not. That's what democracy is. Furthermore, Franz Oppenheimer actually said all the modern states, he said they all emerged via violence. They all emerged via conquest. Today's borders are all drawn by blood around the world, okay? All the nation states nowadays are blooded. They're born by the sword. So the question then arises is, if democracy is tyrannical, if democracy is a perpetual violation of our subjective preferences, then why is it still the dominant form of governance? Why haven't we replaced it? Etienne de la Boétie, he argues in his book, The Politics of Obedience. He says, human beings are born into obedience. Human beings fear the unknown. We got used to democracy. It's been modern day democracy. It's been about 250 years. So we got used to it. We fear the unknown. We stopped imagining alternatives. And some actually under democracy, political governance, some benefit. Think about the bureaucracies and the benefits that they have, and some also fear punishment if they deviate. Just because democracy succeeded monarchy doesn't necessarily mean it was an improvement, it was a better system. Thomas Kuhn tells us that science doesn't progress linearly. Just because there is succession doesn't mean it's necessarily an improvement. Thomas Kuhn tells us some paradigms that vanished in the past may reappear in a different form, right? So it's not a linear successive progression into a better and better form of governance. Second, if democracy is the dominant form of governance, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Dominance doesn't mean better. Think about it. McDonald's dominates the market for hamburgers around the world. But a 5 Michelin star restaurant might have a superior hamburger. So just because democracy dominates doesn't make it necessarily superior. And finally, just because most political theorists, as I talked about earlier, support political governance, it doesn't necessarily mean it is superior, because science is not by consensus. Estimation is by consensus. You can all estimate my weight, and the more number of people, the more you will come close to my real weight. But science is not estimation. Science is not by consensus. I teach economics. I took Menger as my principal's textbook when I was a student at UCLA. I teach at UCLA now. It's been 20, 30 years. We still use Menger. So if you have thousands of economists saying the same thing, doesn't make it right. They all came from the same well. They studied the same books. PhD program, Mas Khalil is the dominant textbook in economics. Everybody studied. So all the political PhDs, if they say the same thing over and over, they have a consensus. Doesn't make it right. They all studied the same book. They all came from the same well. Now, unfortunately, with democracy, we gave up our freedoms. We were promised peace, but we got nothing in return. The 20th century is described as one of the bloodiest centuries in human history. Rummels estimates that 170 million people died at the hand of governments. He called it democide. That includes death by your own government. Think about Hitler, think about Pol Pot, think about Mussolini, think about Mao Zedong. In 2024, there were 61 active state-based conflicts in the world. This is Uppsala data. Think about Ukraine and Russia, USA, Iran, India, Pakistan, within country-based conflicts, including the government of Yemen and the Houthi movement, including a war between the government of Syria and the Syrian rebels, insurgents. So democracy is considered, played, right, a deadly role in the 20th century. That's what democracy is. Now I would like to turn my attention and provide to you and talk about the alternative form of governance, anarchic governance. First, let me define what the symbol looks like. Anarchy is the letter A, which stands for anarchy, which is absence of political order, but there is a circle around it, and the circle stands for order. So it's anarchic order. So absence of government order or absence of political governance doesn't mean we get chaos. It means we get order. I call it a market order or anarchic order, order that emerges in the marketplace. So it is order in the absence of governance. That's what the anarchic symbol indicates. So my task is very ambitious today. First, I would like to reject the premise that political governance is necessary for proper functioning of the society. And my second objective is to actually propose an alternative governance in the form of anarchy. Anarchic governance or market governance, or alternately I'll call it proprietary governance. And it is superior in the sense that it aligns with human nature. Human beings are self-interested. We struggle for survival in the state of nature where there are scarcities. We're guided by our human nature, right? So we want a market order that aligns with our human nature. And we're going to find out that anarchy actually generates peace, harmony, prosperity. So how does anarchic order emerge? So I would like to talk about the economics mechanisms and the institutional mechanisms that will provide the foundations of anarchism, and then hopefully I'll give you some examples. So anarchic order emerges via economic mechanisms and market institutions, and this is what binds society together, right? So when I hear the word society, I mean I see human beings exchanging goods and services. It's not a political society. I don't want to be bound by a political flag. My empathy doesn't stop at an arbitrary border drawn by blood, right? So what binds us together is not politics. What binds us together is economics. What are these mechanisms, economics and institutional mechanisms that bind society together? First, I would like to talk about the division of labor in society. Emil Durkheim's books talks about the division of labor in society. He said that human beings are struggling for survival. They enter society because of the benefits of specialization and trade. I didn't enter this room to benefit you, but to benefit myself, right? My self-interest brings me into this lecture. Your self-interest brings you into this lecture hall, and then we're exchanging. We're exchanging ideas in this case. So human beings motivated by their self-interest specialize under the division of labor, under differences in our comparative advantage laid down by David Ricardo and the classical school of economic thought. And trade turns this dependency, this private self-dependency, into social dependency. I can't fight alone a bear. But if there's hundreds of us, then we can fight 100 bears, right? So that's the gain of cooperation in the marketplace. That's the gain of dependency in the marketplace. So this interconnectedness, because of the division of labor in the marketplace, creates a harmonious social order. Each individual in the marketplace is a puzzle in my puzzle of life, is a piece of the puzzle of my life. Each individual in the marketplace, via the division of labor, contributes to the market society. And the deeper the division of labor, the deeper the interconnectedness, and the deeper the interdependency. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, the world was filled with conquest because labor was homogeneous, right? They were farmers. So there's no gain, not much exchange took place. So conquest was a means of gain. But nowadays, the division of labor is getting so deeper and deeper and deeper. If you look at the title of the jobs, right, it's increasing by manifold over time. My cousin is a doctor. He says the average patient that walks into the hospital ends up meeting 16 different specialists. That's how deep the division of labor is getting. So the deeper the division of labor means the deeper interdependent and interconnected we become. Unfortunately, that wasn't present prior to the Industrial Revolution. There was homogeneity of labor, and now it's getting deeper and deeper. Ants, bees, there's limited division of labor. Like the bees, there's the queen bee, the worker bee, the drones. But human beings, it's limitless, okay? And the deeper it gets, the more interconnected we are. So specialization and trade is foundational mechanism, economic mechanism for a market order to emerge. Secondly, another economic variable is the emergence of the medium of exchange. Money emerged in Mesopotamia about 3000 BC in the form of barley. The most marketable commodity became the medium of exchange. So with money, the division of labor starts getting deeper and deeper because the scope of trade deepens and widens with the invention of the medium of exchange. Another variable, economic variable that provides harmony and interconnectedness, solidarity in the marketplace is the price mechanism. Once we have a medium of exchange, then there arises the price system. As a free market economist from the Austrian perspective, we don't look at prices as just an accounting measure. A rise in the price doesn't mean, oh, price went up, price went down. But embedded in the price, there is information that binds society, that coordinates market activity. There is no such thing as coordination failure because prices play a communicative role. If the price of coffee is going up, well, there is information embedded. Maybe there is drought in Brazil. That's why the price of coffee is going up. Or maybe the demand for coffee is increasing. So the price mechanism is a language that binds society together. If you like green apples over red apples, you don't have to yell, you don't have to call farmers. You just go to the marketplace, bid the price of green apples up, and the producers will hear your voice. So your preferences are revealed in the marketplace, wide and clear. And finally, with the price mechanism, now we can make economic calculations. Well, that takes care of efficiency problems in the marketplace. Governments can't argue that markets are inefficient. Okay? So profit and losses, if I'm making profits, that means I'm taking scarce resources, mixing my labor with technology, and producing goods and services of a higher value. If the opposite is true, then I should stop producing those goods and services. I'm wasting society's scarce resources. So the division of labor, the discovery of the medium of exchange, price mechanism, economic calculations, right, all play the role of creating coordination and harmony in the marketplace. Some market institutions, market jurisprudence emerged in the marketplace. Arbitration and mediation services. 13th, 14th century, we have documents. There's nothing new. It's not invented by legislation. It's a market mechanism facilitating exchange. So we have private arbitration. We still have today our private arbitration and mediation services. Security companies, also security emerged in the marketplace. It wasn't an invention of the state. People, when they go to the market, they want to exchange. They provide caravans in the deserts. They have security with them traveling, right? Also in the marketplace, another institution that plays a very fundamental role. It actually plays the role of a governance, which is assurance companies. What do assurance companies do? They assure, for example, the efficacy and the safety of a drug. We don't need the FDA, we don't need a monopoly in the form of an FDA to assure the safety and the efficacy of a drug. The marketplace will provide assurance services. Next is market institutions such as insurance. I think I have assurance, but you can think about insurance. Insurance companies mitigate risks in the marketplace, in exchange. So the objective of this example is that there are market emergent economic variables and there are market emergent institutional variables that provide harmony, interconnectedness, or coordinate market activity. So together, this market emergent economic and market emergent institutional mechanisms provide the foundations for an anarchic order. These mechanisms of coordination, these mechanisms of cooperation that facilitate cooperation, right, emerge in the marketplace rather than legislation. Think about Friedrich Hayek, right? He talked about spontaneous order. Spontaneous doesn't mean instantaneous, right? Spontaneous means order emerges incrementally. Over time, it takes centuries to emerge. But all these institutions that we discussed, they all historically emerged. We can trace to, the Lloyds of London, the emergence of insurance companies, or the city-states, right? The Italian, the city-states, when they were exchanging goods and services over ships, maritime insurance companies. All this emerged in the marketplace, none emerged via government programs. Now, let's look at how these market institutions and mechanism emerged. So, specifically, I would like to focus on a proprietary governance, right? So, what is proprietary governance? It's governance via ownership. So, one form of anarchic order, I'm trying to anarchy, according to David Friedman, Murray Rothbard, they have the theory of anarchy. I would like to take that step further, actually give you something that you can grab on, like you can tangible, it's feasible, it's practical, right? So I would like to talk about proprietary governance, right? Or proprietary anarchic governance. First, it is a consent-based society, okay? A simple example. Think about a hotel. Okay, and then we can move on to other forms. Think about a hotel. When you walk into a hotel, the rules of conduct are set by the proprietor. You walk in and you follow the rules. If you don't like it, you can walk away, right? Exit and entry is practical. There are low barriers to exit and entry. And this is important because under democracy, under the nation state, exit and entry are very difficult, okay? But if you look at hotels, there are, I think, 30,000 hotels, if I'm not mistaken, or 60,000 hotels. You like it, you walk in, but you follow the rules. Once you walk in, you don't get to change the rules. You don't get to change the chef in the restaurant of the hotel. You don't get to change the swimming pool hours. You don't get to change, right, what time the music shuts down. You walk in, there is no ballots, there is no democracy in that sense, there is no voting, right? There's no HOA. You walk in, you like it, you stay. You don't like it, you can walk out and go to another restaurant. These proprietors, and I'll give you more examples eventually, these proprietors compete to attract tenants. These proprietors are motivated by profits. These proprietors take a look at the land as a productive asset. Right? Land is a productive asset. They will face bankruptcy. There is a threat of competition if they're not responsive to residents' preferences. Think about it. In California, 789 headquarters companies left California in the past decade. 789, causing the job loss of 77,000 people. Do you think the governor or the bureaucrats care about these numbers? No, because they don't have a skin in the game. They're temporary rulers over a territory. The president comes in 4 years, gets lucky another 4 years. This is temporary rule. There's no longevity. It's not proprietary. In contrast to these bureaucracies, Hans-Hermann tells that they don't have an incentive to preserve capital. Democracies are more likely to wage wars. Why? Because they will privatize the gain if they win the war. And either way, whether they lose or they win, they will socialize the cost. We pay the cost. One way is life, another way is inflation. We pay the cost of the war, and they privatize. The gang in Washington, D.C. privatize the gains, and they socialize the cost. Under a proprietary management, the proprietor has an incentive to protect the land. It's his property, right? He has a skin in the game. Democratic rulers don't own the realm, they don't own the territory. Bureaucrats in democracies, they don't face competition. They don't face bankruptcy. Think about the police department. If they don't do a job, it doesn't shut down. But a private security company faces bankruptcy if they don't perform. Furthermore, bureaucrats don't have the mechanisms that gauge preferences of the consumers. How would a bureaucrat know how much public library society desire? There are fees, there is no prices. How would a bureaucrat know how much do we want to spend on military? How much do we want to spend on roads? There's no price mechanism. In a marketplace, your preferences are revealed via the price mechanism, but bureaucrats don't operate by the price mechanism. Think about the waste, the inefficiencies. We have shortage of water in the state of California. When I drive summertime freeway, it says conserve water. Well, I mean, we have plenty of water. It's a closed system. Water goes up, comes down. If not in California, somewhere else. We can bring it back to California. We can desalinate. Planet Earth is 70% water. I lived in the United Arab Emirates for 6 years. They desalinate water. We have plenty of water. There's no shortage. Why is there a shortage? Think every time government supplies a good or a service, whether it's the USPS, bankrupt, FedEx, is making profits, they're expanding to Europe, right? What's the other one? USPS, right? But government programs, government services, they're all bankrupt, there's always shortage. Why is there a shortage of water? Because subsidize water to the farmers. And in California, they're growing alfalfa sprouts. When you go to Whole Foods, the greens, they juice it. In the desert, growing water-intensive goods, water-intensive crops. So governments, when was the last time you went to the supermarket and there was a shortage of beer? Well, there's shortage of water, but there's never a shortage of beer. So everything that's provided in the marketplace via the market forces of demand and supply, there's never shortage, there will never surplus. The equilibrium, we're moving towards a fleeting equilibrium, but nevertheless we're chasing that equilibrium. Okay? So governments operate outside of the marketplace, bureaucracies operate outside of the marketplace. Now, I want to talk about some of you. I give the example of a hotel, but some of you are thinking, can you really give us an example of an historical example? Who's curious about historical example of anarchic order? I'm sure some of you are curious, right? I'm sorry to say that's a bad question, okay? That was a trap. That's a horrible question. Why is it a horrible question to ask for historical examples? For many reasons. Just because something didn't exist in the past doesn't mean cannot exist in the future. Number one. Number two, if I always look backward into the past, I can never look forward. I mean, if I look backward and it happened, then it happened. It's nothing new, okay? So don't ask that question, can you give me a historical example? I can give you some quasi-partial examples, but I don't want to. Okay? It's a very bad question. It's a retrogressive question asking me about historical examples of anarchic order. No, I don't want to give it to you. I don't look backward, I look forward. Imagine asking Elon Musk in 2014, can you give us an example of an AI-driven car? Well, there aren't any. Okay, so that's a bad question, but still, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give you some modern examples, right? Some modern examples, I mentioned already, hotels. There's 64,000 hotels in the US. Private colleges and universities is another example of anarchic proprietary governance. It's a private property, a private college. There is 3,000 and plus. I think there is 85 of them in LA County. Well, it's very easy. You can look at the curriculum, you can look at the faculty, graduation rate, finding jobs, etc. You like it, you walk in, but once you're in, you don't get to vote. The problem is democracy, it's majority rule, it's the tyranny of the majority. You don't get to vote. You walk in, you like the rules, you walk in, you're a student. You don't like it, you walk away. And these universities are doing what? They're competing with one another. Now take the classroom, put houses instead, right? So that's a gated community. So that's an example, a rental gated community is another example. You can think about cruise ships as another example of anarchic or proprietary order. Cruise ships, shopping centers, big shopping centers. You walk in, you get a space, right? You're a tenant, you follow the rules. You don't like it, you walk through the street. Now, we have 8.5 billion people on planet Earth, 8.5 billion people, and we have only 195 countries. We have 8.5 billion unique subjective preferences. It's like your thumb print, your pupil, like these are unique to you. Unique subjective preferences, 8.5 billion people, and we want to squeeze them in 195 countries? If you go to Cheesecake Factory, anyone has been to Cheesecake Factory? Some of you have been there, right? You know how many items they have on the menu? It's seasonal. It could go all the way to 360 items. The average, they have 250 items. More items on a menu at Cheesecake Factory, more variety than the variety presented to 8.5 billion people. So what I'm suggesting here is there would be theoretically as many jurisdictions as there are preferences. Obviously, because of the benefits of the division of labor and exchange, the market will determine how many jurisdictions, how many proprietary contractual society there will exist. Definitely in the thousands. We have 64,000 hotels, each one providing a different service. We have over 3,000 colleges, private colleges and universities. We have in the US 30,000 gated communities, 28.7 million people. 28.7 million people live in these gated communities. We want more of them. We want more of these gated communities. And when I say gated, it doesn't mean a physical barrier, not necessarily, right? They could be open to one another for the free flow of, human beings. So we can't squeeze 350 million people in 50 states. Let's have 5,000 states. That way each individual can walk into the proprietary society according to your subjective preferences. Okay? So a market governance, market order provides alternatives to you. I would like to give you an example. This is in Los Angeles. This is called Park La Brea. It's a rental gated community. 4,252 rental units. Around 12,000 people live in this community. Right here. 12,000 people live in that community. The proprietor provides security. The proprietor provides the utilities, access, private access, maintenance. The US has roughly 19,500 cities. On average, the size of a US city is about 10,600 inhabitants. So this already looks like an average size city in the US with its 12,000 inhabitants. Park La Brea, if you're familiar with Los Angeles, it's between the 3rd and the 6th Street and bounded by Fountain and La Brea, okay? Now, would you want to live here or would you want to hear back here over here? Do you know what this is back here? That's downtown Los Angeles. 1 in 26 people every year get 1 in 26 people are victims of a criminal activity. 1 in 26 people in downtown Los Angeles every year are victims of a crime, right there. But you know what is the crime rate over here? It's about 28% less, not in this particular place, but gated communities have over 28% less of a criminal activity than public places under political governance. This is just for illustrative purposes. Autumn Meyer says, I feel very safe here. This is Park La Brea. It's this community. Heidi says, I'm a single mom. I feel very safe. Charlie says, definitely feel safe. Victoria says, I love it here. These are the type of reviews that you get relative to living outside of these gated communities. Now, finally, I think I have about 10 minutes left. I want to talk briefly about the transition. How do we get there? We don't need a revolution. It's not like we need arms revolution. It's not a French revolution or a bloodied American revolution. We have all the mechanisms. We have the market mechanisms. We have the economic mechanisms. We have private security agencies already exist in the marketplace. We have private arbitration and mediation services. We have market emergent medium of exchange, Bitcoin and beyond Bitcoin, right? Cryptocurrencies can play a medium of exchange. We have insurance and assurance companies that will provide mitigation of risks, right? They play a coordinative role in the marketplace. It coordinates market activity. We have the price mechanism. We have economic calculations. We have all this market emergent mechanisms that will provide harmony and interdependence and interconnectedness and efficiency and efficacy in the marketplace. Nothing new needs to be invested. There is only one thing. What is needed is a paradigm shift. What is a paradigm shift? It's a fundamental change in our belief system. It's a fundamental change in the way that we think about a subject. In this case, what is needed is a paradigm shift. When enough people realize that democracy is unable to accomplish what democracy proposed and promised to accomplish. We got no peace, we got no security. What we got from democracy is war and death and democide and conflict. What we need to do is test out various forms of governance systems. We need to try out various iterations of police-centric provision of jurisprudence, arbitration, security. The proprietors decide. Some of these services could be a monopolistically provided services. There is nothing wrong with market monopoly. It's efficiencies of scale. What you should fear is government monopoly or government licensed monopoly. But a market monopoly, that's fine. So we need to try out various forms of governance, various forms of iterations of how much the proprietor provides the services and how much of these services, whether it's security services, assurance services, emerges in the marketplace via the competitive mechanisms. Let's try out different forms of governance. Finally, I would like to leave you with the following thought. Don't fear anarchy. Embrace it. Don't end history, as Fukuyama said. The sciences, the technology, chemistry, biology, they didn't close the book. There are still investigations going on in the biology, in chemistry, in the hard sciences, in the soft sciences. We're still investigating. Why should we close the window? Why should we close the window of trying out different forms of governance system? Let's open that window. Let's try it out. Try anarchy. Try anarchy because anarchy is beautiful. Try anarchy because anarchy is harmonious. Try anarchy because anarchy is prosperous. Try anarchy most importantly because it aligns with human nature. And finally, try anarchy because anarchy is beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay, I guess we have time for questions. Yes, please.
Multi-layered questions, so we can bear with me.
Okay.
First of all, I have a lot of sympathies for your views, but I disagree that democracy is such an evil thing. And I wouldn't say that because...
Sorry, you disagree or
I disagree.
You disagree?
It's that bad. It's not perfect.
Okay.
I disagree
Okay.
that it's that bad. Only because, where I came from, the country I came from, if I attended a lecture like this, I would be in jail.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure people would say today, even though I attended a lecture like this. So democracy might not be that bad. However, for the sake of the argument, it is bad, it's terrible, we need to get rid of it. Question number one would be, with democracy being so entrenched in some countries, how much blood needs to be shed to get rid of governments, armies, all that kind of stuff, and assume that we took care of that part, then how scalable is that system? So we're done, the examples you provided are 2,000 people getting together, all that kind of stuff, so how scalable can that be? Especially if you have an environment where you have people with conflicting value systems, whether it's religion or whatever, especially religion, right? So how can you scale this up? Most importantly, the arbitration. So with conflict of value systems, who is going to be the arbitrar? Are you going to end up in a position where you once again need government? So I guess where I agree with you is that your concerns seem to me like concern about big government, big unefficient government. So the answer would be more like the small, localized, limited government. Anyway, so sorry, it's kind of a long question.
It's okay.
So primarily is scalability.
Okay, so let me summarize it for you quickly. First, let me guess. You said you're not from here in your country. Are you from the Middle East?
I am.
Are you from Lebanon?
No, no.
Oh, بتحكي عربي؟ I'm Lebanese. أنا كمان بحكي عربي. Where are you from?
Egypt.
Oh, Egypt. أهلا. Definitely, many countries around the world, you give a speech like this, you would be hanged. I would be hanged in Lebanon if I'm talking about, But I'm not making country comparisons. I'm not interested in the rest of the world. I'm just picking a country. I'm saying in that particular country, right, democracy is inefficient, ineffective, is a violation of my subjective preferences. In the state of California, I can't smoke flavored tobacco, for example. It's simple flavored tobacco. I can't smoke it because some bureaucrats or some people voted against that. So definitely in some countries, there's more freedoms than other countries. In some countries, within country, there's more freedom, but that particular country could be committing violence externally. So you can have a country that's nice to its own people, but not nice to the foreigners, and then vice versa. So I'm not making inter-country comparisons. The second thing is, you said that there are different congruent set of beliefs. Different people in Egypt, for example, there's the Coptic Christians, and then there are Muslims. In Lebanon, there are the Shia and the Sunni and the Druze and the Christian Catholics. So that's the beauty of anarchy, is that depending based on your preferences, you can congregate with such people. So anarchy, imagine take the US and divide it, instead of having 50 states, we can have 500 states. We can have 5,000 jurisdictions. Okay, 5,000 jurisdictions, still each jurisdiction could have several million people in it. Okay, and when I say gated community, doesn't have like we're closed off to one another. Still trade is taking place. I mean, trade is expanding around the world. So the beauty is you decide, you pick based on your subjective preferences, which community you want to live in. So you differentiate yourself based on if you want to live under Sharia law, perfect. Anarchy provides an environment where people could live under Sharia law. If people, want to have certain beliefs, ethnic groups, they can congregate together. But the most dominant, the most prosperous would be the one that people congregate where the division of labor is the deepest. That prosperity dominates. People in third world countries, when there is a war, they don't migrate to a country where it's the same religion or the same ethnic groups. They try in the world, okay, I have a situation, I can't live in this country. But they migrate to the country that is the most prosperous. So prosperity is dominant, right? So the jurisdiction that is the most prosperous, regardless, because prosperity doesn't know ethnicity, doesn't know religion, right? Everyone wants to benefit from the deep division of labor. That's why. But if you have strong subjective preferences, then you can congregate with your own people. The issue here, exit is very expensive. If I want to go to a place where my preference aligns with my preferences, I have to travel a long distance. But in an anarchic society, when California is 50 jurisdictions, then it's easy for me. I can get out from Glendale and I walk across a few blocks, 10 minutes, I'm in another jurisdiction. I'm in Burbank, I'm in Pasadena, I'm in downtown Los Angeles, I'm in Westwood, right? So that's the transition. And finally, I want to conclude with, you said the transition, how do we conquer all the militaries and armies around the world? It's not bloody. It's a mindset. It's a paradigm shift. It would collapse on its own weight. It becomes unsustainable if enough people realize that this is inefficient, ineffective, it's tyrannical, then it's collapsed on its own weight. The first transition, like practical transition, is taking the medium of exchange, money, and the Fed. If we end the Fed and we take money outside, the hands of governments, they can't print fiat money, they can't wage wars, they can't inflate, they can't distribute welfare programs. 50% of bottom 50% pay 1%, 2% taxes. Top 50% pay 80, 90% of the taxes. Of course, in a medium voter model, in a democracy, people benefit. They're always going to vote for welfare programs. So governments print money. It's an indirect form of taxation. If you take money out of the hands of government, if you privatize money, then governments would collapse on its own weight. And it's not bloody. Blood doesn't need to be spilled. It just collapses. Soviet Union collapsed. It wasn't bloody. Soviet Union, 15 countries, it just collapsed on its own weight. Countries, Czechoslovakia split up peacefully. So you can have cessations, you can have splitting up, you can have proprietary societies. You can start with Park La Brea, another person opens up another proprietary society, and then the rest of us would observe that this is a prosperous environment. You want to go into that space. So I don't know exactly the blueprint of how transition takes place, but I think it's nearer than you think. I don't think it's something like, it's imaginary or it's a theory. No, I think we're there at an inflection point. Please.
So we're building a town in unincorporated land in Austin.
Okay.
To test these ideas.
Oh, well, awesome.
So we'd love to talk to you later.
Awesome. Yeah, we have an exhibit. We're exhibiting. Please come find us.
But I also have a question.
Yeah.
I'm curious in your model if there's any way for people to have personal ownership, because in a hotel you don't own anything, and so.
Great question. Yeah, great question. So it's possible. Yes.
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. So the question is, could we have in an under proprietary contractual society or jurisdiction, could we have ownership of the property? Right? It's possible. So obviously there is one could be a rental proprietary contractual society like a hotel, or alternatively in a gated community they're split. I think there is more rental, like 55-60% is rental and about 40% is ownership. But the ownership is not the ownership in the way you understand it today. You own shares of that, so it's an asset, it's an ownership, it's an ownership via shares, depending on the value of the house. And if the value goes up, you can actually benefit. You can sell your property and move out. in that sense you own it, not in the sense that you own it and I want to add another floor and I want to expand and I want to build, so you have limited, it's ownership as an asset, not ownership in the traditional sense. So you can move those shares and then, move on to another institution, another proprietary society. Yeah, very good question. I was thinking about that, yeah.
I'm curious, you're talking about sort of a situation of experimental governance on like a large scale in a lot of different places. What would be your favorite or one that you would want to experiment that you want to see done first?
Very good question. We're thinking about it. We drove all the way. It took us 4 hours. I think me and Ethan were talking about how do we transition, because we saw empty land. If you drive from Los Angeles to Vegas, there's, and I was thinking we should get one of this piece of land. I mean, we can put 1 million people in there, and provide. I think transition happens when, there is some programs like the Seasteading Institute. If you're familiar with it, they're trying to have like seasteads. Patrick Friedman, the grandson of David Friedman, they got some funding. They're trying out, seasteads to try out various form of polycentric governance. There are few places in the world, I think in Honduras there is an experiment that's going on. Joy Brand, I think.
Free Cities Project.
Free Cities Project. So people are trying out various programs, I don't know, maybe get an island and try it out and make it prosperous. And it's more doable now than in the past because remote work, people could inhabit, they could be productive. You don't need to be in the city. You could have remote, you could innovate remotely. Maybe islands. Maybe some nations will sell parts of their land. They're falling apart. They need money, Maybe someone wealthy would buy a piece of land and start a proprietary contractual society. I don't know. There are many possibilities. Yeah, question?
I was just going to mention those prosper and Warzone and Honduras.
Yeah.
Sort of reasonable.
Reasonable, yeah. Liberland is another in Europe between Croatia and Serbia. I think there's a piece of land, Liberland, they're trying out. Richard, you have a question?
In using democracy as being part of it, I agree with you. Democracy in itself is a modern but for some of us that are coming from third world countries, democracy always goes with the rule of law, and rule of law is what we're talking about. For instance, when you use hotel as an example of a good example of anarchy, where you can leave or you can stay when you are not comfortable with the rules there. For instance, if I live in a country like Ghana, where I am not comfortable with the democratic system, and I begin to practice anarchy, there is no way I can live. Where do I need to? I still have to stay in the country. With artificial boundaries around us, that doesn't allow me to move to another country. So it's going to be difficult for me, and it's from my choice that I was born into that country. So democracy in itself, yes, it is difficult, just a solution for us, but living an anarchist in states like
Yeah, so think about Ghana being like smaller jurisdictions. So you don't have to live Ghana as a whole. You can just like go from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. So the issue is we want low barrier to exit. Now barriers to exit is very high. I mean, where do I exit the USA? How do I escape the federal government? It's so big. I mean, I have to go across oceans, culture, language. But imagine within Ghana, within your own community, you have proprietary contractual societies. So entry and exit should be low cost. So yeah, so.
Within the state, that is where we are uniquely, we are not federal as the United States. Maybe how do you do that?
Well, let's talk after, because I think I have to officially, I'm getting signs, signs from back there. So let me officially, let's end it, but we can have a casual conversation, okay? So, you have a question back there? Okay. Okay, go ahead, yeah. Yeah, please. I don't know. He's gone now, so we can continue the conversation. Sorry, like he was giving me, Go ahead, ask a question.
I was going to say, I think that HOAs are versions of anarchies, just ones that people regret. But they do follow an anarchic process. And then two, I'm actually going to say I disagree with you on one particular thing, but let me explain why. I mean, obviously you have superior intelligence and experience and education when it comes to experience level on this. I was very successful developing trading systems for stocks and commodities and foreign exchange traders. And in that industry, we have a saying that we use very heavily: past performance is not indicative of future results. And it's a very true statement. However, the counter to that is, while that may be true, we don't have anything else to go by. And so when somebody does ask, can you give me examples? I don't think it's inappropriate to say that, well, that's the wrong question. I think it is the right question. However, the way somebody is asking may be one of aggression, as you're saying, because they want to fight. But it is also because they're coming to it from a position of fear.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is in trading. Yeah. The whole point of past performance isn't to tell us what will happen in the future. It's to give us some assurance that it succeeded in the past. And therefore, without any history, all I have is fear of what can go wrong. If I can see examples, then I can see, okay, there's been the success, that level of fear, but adoption is no longer as intense. And I see that. I adopted to anarchy 35 years ago. You don't need to convince me. Yeah. But for people who haven't, they do need to have those fears alleviated.
It's a very good question. I think the issue is epistemological. How do we know what we know? So one mindset, and I would say the majority of the people would want like an illustrative example. They rely on data, historical examples. But the science, yes, but the science of economics is a deductive science. I don't need to observe the law of demand. If a price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. I don't need to go to the market and see prices going up, take notes, data, and see quantity demanded of apples is going down. If you close my eyes, and then you based on the expenditure, the price going up, the income effect, and based on the substitution effect, I know that the quantity demanded will go down. So economic theories emerge deductively. Not inductively, so I'm a strong deductive, that's the methodology I use. But I agree with you, for the general population, they don't know epistemology, so you're right. It's a very good question for the general public, but in my program, in the program that we have, we spent the second pillar, we spent about 4 or 5 hours talking about just epistemology. Talking about deductive versus inductive methodology, and root the science of economics as a deductive science rather than positivist or science. But I agree with you, for the general people, I mentioned already, people fear the unknown, and I agree that I should maybe bring in some examples, historical examples. There are some historical examples, but I tried to give you some modern examples, like gated communities or things. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, thank you. I would introduce historical examples.
I'm already a true believer, but a lot of people think that democracy and anarchism can be saved if only we can shrink the size and scope of government and establish a Bill of Rights such that the minority is not victimized by the majority. How do you handle objections like that?
I mean, in a proprietary governance, no one needs to be victim. There is no minority, there is no majority. I'm providing you a system of governance where, based on your preferences, you can inhabit that territory. They can change the rules. There is a contractual agreement. They have to compensate you if they change the rules. So you have an exit funding, So exit is easy. Entry is relatively, competitive. No one's preferences should be violated. I really don't care if one person's if there's a million people's whose preferences against my own preferences, I don't want to subject my preferences to their demands. I'm indifferent. If 1 billion people want it that way and I prefer the other way, then I'm going to go with my own preference. Never ever subjugate yourself to the preference of the majority, even if it's 1 million or 1 billion people. So on planet Earth, under proprietary governance, I'm sure you subjectively decide which preferences you want to give up if you want to enter society to benefit from the division of labor and trade. So it's up to you how much of your liberties you want to give up. Yes?
I was going to say, just as an addition to the hand, which we could kind of view this as a variation, from Benjamin Franklin, and it has the same problems. What kind of governance do you have? Anarchy, if you can keep it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people don't want all that structure. Some people have to have structure, and they should be able to willingly choose to be part of the structure. The biggest problem we have with adapting to anarchy is actually a variation of what you're saying, where you're saying you can choose what your form of governance. But true anarchy is the ability to also choose in the absence of governance at all, and that's a big problem we have. Is every place you go, someone is really claiming governance over you.
Yeah, but no one has control over you, but proprietary governance has control over you because you entered that property. You freely entered this property. So therefore the proprietor has taken away some of your freedoms. Certain things you cannot do. That's not
5,000 governments you can choose from. I don't want the option to choose none of them and be asked.
You can. In anarchy you can. It will be your,
But the adoption to it, to actually achieve that is very difficult.
No, you can. You can self-isolate yourself. You can live like an ascetic life all on your own. You can find a piece of land somewhere where you can buy it, and then you can have your own jurisdiction, completely isolated. Anarchy gives you. That's why I said we could have as many jurisdictions as there are subjective preferences theoretically. But the reality is, you want to join society, you want to congregate, and you want to give up some of your liberties. But it's. That's okay. That's okay. That's yeah. You could have your own jurisdiction. You could have your own hut, your own villa, your own island. That's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. One last question.
I was talking to a fellow yesterday, and I wasn't able to quite give him a satisfactory answer as to how in an anarchic system we would combat coercion. I have two examples. So there's an idea that the division of labor would make us weaker in a sense, because if you have someone who is specialized in a task, they're the only person who is able to perform that task or perform that service in a certain community, let's say, or let's say they're the only person in the entire world who can perform that task. Let's say someone goes and kills that person, but they're performing an essential service. Does that not make us weaker in a certain sense? So this is essentially, how would you answer someone who advocates autocracy in this way?
I mean, the market decides the depth of the division of labor. I don't think it's going to be a situation when one person on planet knows a certain particular task. If there is a demand for it, then if there is demand by one person, then maybe that task doesn't even exist. I mean, you could have a place where the division of labor doesn't provide you the services that you desire. It's market dependent, and then there are cases where one person provides that service, so he dies, then the service will not be provided. There is no demand for it, basically, it means. So if there's no demand, then there's no...
So if there is demand, then certain supply will organically...
Naturally, if there's more demand, then, producers, more people will enter that industry.
Gotcha. And then follow-ups, so... where did I comment? So, what would be the way of, suppose you have an anarchic community then, like a proprietary governance community, which is, say, as an example, being invaded by like another community that doesn't recognize these rights.
Yeah, when you say so a proprietary community is invaded by another proprietary community.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like give me an analogy. Think about you're in a hotel, and why would the guests in a hotel attack another hotel? Because there is no we.
Like one.
Huh? Of whom? Of what? By whom?
That's better example.
Yeah, I understand, but not the residents, not the guests of the hotel. So there's no we. So a hotel.
One proprietor decides to take over another proprietorship.
Well, I mean, first proprietors, they would have like some types of contractual agreements in terms of if like, so you commit a crime in one proprietary society and then you run to another. So they have like contractual agreements of adjudication. There is third party arbitration. They have like harmonious relationship because of the division of labor is so deep. I have no gain by invading you. I mean, what am I going to take? Your laptop, your cell phone, your car, but I have more gain by engaging in exchange with you, in trade with you. Pre-industrial revolution, maybe I have gains to conquer your land because there is homogeneity, but I benefit more from you. You know, I mean, conquer, take what? Conquer, take the inhabit. I mean, you want to go take. So let me expand.
You would be a better manager than me of certain proprietary.
I mean, if one hotel management, not the residents, wage a war, hostile takeover. I mean, you mean physical takeover of another, like, then who would want to inhabit that hotel? Would you want to be a guest in a hotel where the management has attacked, you know, the hostile takeover of another hotel? Like, wouldn't you anticipate retaliation? Would you want to go to a hotel where there are threats that are being made against that particular, you know, jurisdiction or hotel? It's not sustainable what you're saying. Like, there's no hostile takeover in that sense. It's just not gainful. It's not gainful.
So then with third-party security, like...
Securities are, securities provide, they get their funding for defensive purposes. Like, you know, I mean, imagine the security of UCLA taking over USC. Security, just the security.
Yeah.
The proprietor doesn't like it. I mean, the UCLA management, they don't like a hostile takeover, they lose their students. But security on its own, where does it get its funding? But USC has also its own security, and Long Beach has its own security, and Chapman has its own security. So there is like...
each proprietor would have their own security so as to prevent a hostile takeover.
They all have securities.
Okay.
All the proprietors have security, of course. And their security is not like not security in the sense, I mean,
So
there are
if
security.
fails against, say, another proprietor with their security who goes and takes over.
All the securities would come in a village, long time ago, when there was a hostile takeover of a family that homesteaded a land, a piece of house, a piece of land. All the inhabitants of the village would come to their rescue because people desire order. And if there's a hostile takeover in a village of a homesteaded piece of land, then if you take over, then everybody fears that you could continue, another person could come to it. So a natural mechanisms emerges of helping one another. So there'll be like, you know, jurisdictions, all the hotels will come together, then they say like this particular hotel is making hostile, aggressive, bloody takeover of all other hotels. So there emerges in the marketplace a consensus of defensive mechanism. And it's not gainful to start with.
Yes.
Yeah.
I recognize that, but would that contract of mutual defense not then rest on the mentality of the constituent proprietors within this hypothetical agreement not being governed or cowed so much by their fear of the hostile as, you know, more empowered by their, you know, desire to, like...
Are you saying the inhabitants of a particular jurisdiction want this hostile takeover?
Well, I mean, so...
I mean, if I'm living in a jurisdiction and the security is committing a hostile takeover against another jurisdiction, then as an inhabitant, I want to leave that jurisdiction.
No, like the jurisdiction wants, say, like, so, I guess a better example would be like, Sassoon in the province of Sassoon in the Ottoman Empire, Armenia, 1894 to 96.
Yeah.
The Armenians rebelled against the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
In that one very small mountainous area, they wanted to establish their own, like, small nation state, like for and by Armenians.
Yeah.
The Ottoman government obviously didn't want that. They're like, hey, we want this territory.
But
the people of the Ottoman Empire, like Turks, supported the Ottoman government. So it's like one group of people warring against another.
But the people are. It's a political. You said it's a political governance. In anarchic,
it's a political government, but it has the support of its constituents. But it doesn't have to be.
The only reason it has the support of its constituents is because it is a political party. It's a political governance. Under anarchic governance, there is no flags. Under anarchic governance, it's like going to a shopping center. You really don't want you have no benefit that the shopping center security is attacking another shopping center security.
I mean, like the owners and the security and everyone who has a share.
Well, you gave me an example that happened like,
to be fair, it's like over 100 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, since then, back then, it makes sense because there is no division of labor. The depth of the division of labor renders hostile takeovers irrelevant, ungainful. Hostile takeover happens when there is a gain. I don't have a gain. Society as a whole doesn't have a gain to take over another. Land has no value in the production process. What has value is the human mind and human ingenuity, and that's non-violable. I can't enslave you. You're too costly, you're biological. There are robots now. I can buy a robot for $30,000, it's more productive than you. And I can't enslave you, I have no gain, because the only variable, the only input as a factor of production that's valuable is the human mind, is human ingenuity. And if I enslave you, then you can't be able to produce. The most I can benefit from you is by leaving you alone. So you can invent, innovate, find a cure for cancer, etc. The foundation, the fundamentals of hostile takeover, you should make cost-benefit analysis. The benefits, I'm saying they don't exist, even though if it's not possible. But let's assume it's possible. There's no foundations for it. It's short-lived. It's like a gang attacking another gang. I mean, I'm not providing utopia, but I'm saying like that's disequilibrium. That's an outlier. Some events can take place in Sassoon, but that wouldn't be the norm, because we don't benefit by conquest. No more, no longer. There's no benefit. Land that doesn't have
its own contradictions. It would collapse under the weight of its own contradictions, so to speak. The inefficiencies inherent in the act of the hostile takeover would cause people to eventually escape to market alternatives. Well, eventually
escape, come back to market to the marketplace.
It's not alternatives.
It's not gainful. The hostile and then what? Hostile takeover of what? What are you going to take over? Land has no value. There's plenty of land. What has value is human ingenuity, and you can take over that. If I can hostile take over your brain and put it in my brain, then I would do it. But we can't do that. I can't steal your brain. So hostile takeover is, I don't think it's feasible. It's not gainful. That's what I'm saying, and I don't think you can do it. It's not gainful, so it makes it less likely to happen. It's short-lived. Anyways, okay. So I'm gonna end it here. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Go to our website.
Yeah, thank you.